They were powerful, they were innovative, and they were built to change farming forever. But instead, they vanished. These are the Case tractors that had everything: muscle, design, and engineering brilliance, yet somehow ended up as legends of failure. From the monstrous 1200 Traction King that terrified farmers in the 60s, to the futuristic MX-180 that pushed technology too far, each of these tractors was great, but doomed. So what went wrong? Was it bad timing, corporate chaos, or were they just too far ahead of their time? Today, we're digging into the 10 Case tractors that should have ruled the fields but instead were buried by history. Number 1. Case 1200 Traction King, 1966 to 1969. When Case introduced the 1200 Traction King, it wasn't just releasing another tractor, it was introducing an entirely new concept to agriculture. This was the first articulated four-wheel drive tractor ever mass-produced in America, with a massive 451 cubic inch diesel engine pushing around 120 horsepower. The 1200 Traction King was decades ahead of its time. It could outpull nearly anything on the market, climb muddy slopes without wheel spin, and turn on a dime thanks to its center pivot articulation. But in 1966, most farmers weren't ready for something this radical. The typical operation was still small, using 2 WD tractors for tillage and chores. To many, the 1200 looked huge, complicated, and expensive. The articulation system, while innovative, required more maintenance, especially the universal joints and steering cylinders, which wore out faster under constant heavy loads. Mechanics accustomed to simple gearboxes were intimidated by its design. Case engineers saw the 1200 as the future of farming, but their dealers struggled to sell that vision. The tractor's price was high, fuel consumption was considerable, and its massive frame made it difficult to transport between smaller fields. A few progressive farmers, mainly in the Great Plains, bought them and loved them, praising their unmatched traction and durability. But for most, it was simply too much machine. By the time farmers realized the benefits of 4WD articulation, Steiger and Versatile had entered the market with cheaper, simpler alternatives. The Traction King was left behind, selling only a few hundred units before being discontinued in 1969. Today, collectors see the 1200 Traction King as a pioneer that paved the way for modern high-horsepower farming. It was over-engineered, misunderstood, and ahead of its era, a technical masterpiece that failed not because it was bad, but because it was too good, too soon. Number 2. Case 1070. Agri King, 1971 to 1978. The Case 1070 Agri King was built to be the perfect mid-range tractor. Packing 108 horsepower from a rock-solid 451 cubic inch diesel, it promised power, comfort, and modern styling at a reasonable price. Case advertised it as the ideal balance, powerful enough for heavy fieldwork, but efficient and compact enough for everyday farm tasks. From the outside, it was gorgeous. The 1070 introduced Case's new squared-off design language, featuring the bold red and white color scheme that became legendary. Inside, farmers found a comfortable cab with heat, ventilation, and ergonomic controls, a major leap forward in operator comfort. Under the hood, it carried Case's new power shift transmission, which let farmers shift on the go without clutching, revolutionary at the time. But that same power shift system became the tractor's undoing. Early production units suffered from clutch pack failures and gearshift glitches that required expensive repairs. In an age before extended warranties, one breakdown could bankrupt a small farm. Word spread quickly, and soon the 1070 had a reputation, fair or not, for being unreliable. Competitors like the John Deere 4430 and IH 1066 exploited that gap. They offered similar power with simpler, proven gearboxes. Many dealers advised customers to stick with what works, and Case's reputation took a hit. What's tragic is that later series 1070s fixed most of those early problems. When maintained properly, they were durable, efficient, and powerful. But in the farming world, reputations are permanent. Once trust is lost, sales never recover. The 1070 was also caught in a size trap. Too small for large grain farms, too costly for small dairy operators. It lived in the gray area between utility and power. Decades later, enthusiasts call it the tractor that should have ruled the 70s. With its clean styling and smooth ride, it symbolized Case's push toward innovation. a push that, sadly, arrived just a bit too rough around the edges. Number 3. Case 1470 Traction King, 1971 to 1978. If the 1200 Traction King was Case's first moonshot, the 1470 Traction King was its attempt to colonize the moon. Massive, muscular, and unmistakable, this 14-nave monster produced over 200 horsepower from a 504 cubic inch turbocharged diesel engine. Built to dominate large-acre grain fields, it was one of the most powerful tractors of its era. Everything about the 1470 screamed capability: heavy-duty axles, articulated steering, and a transmission built to handle brutal workloads. It was the answer to farmers demanding more horsepower for bigger implements, and for a short time, it seemed like Case had struck gold. But the timing couldn't have been worse. Just as the 1470 entered full production, the 1973 oil crisis hit. Fuel costs skyrocketed, and farmers shied away from anything with an appetite for diesel. The 1470, powerful as it was, could easily consume 10+ gallons per hour under load. At the same time, inflation and interest rates made large purchases risky. Competition also stiffened. Companies like Steiger and Versatile offered simpler 4WD tractors that were easier to repair and came with fewer hydraulic complications. The 1470's articulation and power shift technology were impressive but intimidating to mechanics untrained on Case systems. Despite these challenges, owners loved how the tractor performed. Its traction and torque was second to none, and it could pull tillage equipment through the toughest soils without slipping. Unfortunately, admiration doesn't pay the bills, and sales remained disappointing. Production ended in 1978, and only a limited number were built. Today, the 1470 Traction King has a cult following among collectors and big iron enthusiasts. Many say it's the machine that proved Case could go toe-to-toe with anyone in raw engineering, but also the one that showed how quickly brilliance can be undone by bad timing and a fuel crisis. It wasn't just a tractor. It was a mechanical statement, one that roared too loudly for its time. Number 4. Case 2090, 1979 to 1983. When Case launched the 90 series, it wanted to show that the company had learned from the past. The Case 2090 embodied everything farmers had been asking for: reliability, operator comfort, and serviceability. Under the hood was the proven 504 cubic inch 6-cylinder diesel, putting out around 127 horsepower. Its transmission was smoother than ever, the cab was insulated and quiet, and the layout made long hours in the field far more tolerable. In field tests, the 2090 earned high marks. It was stable, fuel-efficient, and strong, able to handle a wide range of implements. Case engineers finally produced a tractor with no glaring mechanical flaws. Dealers were optimistic. For once it seemed Case was back on track. But the timing again was disastrous. The early 1980s farm crisis hit just as the 90 series reached showrooms. Interest rates soared to 20%, land values plummeted, and thousands of farms went bankrupt. Even farmers who wanted a new tractor couldn't secure financing. The 2090 became the right tractor at the worst possible time. Sales dried up, and Case's financial struggles deepened. Many small-town dealers closed, leaving customers worried about parts and service availability. Technically, there was little to complain about. Its 8-speed power shift worked smoothly, and its heavy-duty frame made it a dependable workhorse. But tractors don't sell on engineering alone. They sell on confidence, and during the crisis years, confidence in Case was low. When the merger with International Harvester loomed in 1985, the 2090 was quietly phased out. Farmers who owned one often kept it for decades because it was built like a tank. Looking back, the 2090 wasn't a failure of design, it was a casualty of the economy. It represented Case at its most refined moment before corporate turbulence reshaped the brand forever. Number 5. Case 4490, 1983 to 1987. The 4490 was Case's last great 4WD effort before merging with International Harvester, and it showed. With nearly 200 horsepower and an articulated chassis, it was a formidable pulling machine designed for the big farms of the Midwest and Canadian prairies. Under the hood sat a 504 cubic inch turbo diesel that delivered immense low-end torque. For operators used to smaller tractors, climbing into a 4490 felt like entering a locomotive. It had a modern cab with full climate control, a comfortable suspension seat, and hydraulic capacity that could power the biggest air seeders of the day. In the field, it was unstoppable. Its traction and stability were incredible, and its durability was widely respected. Yet, once again, external forces ruined its chances. The farm crisis of the 1980s was still crushing equipment sales. Large operations were consolidating or going bankrupt, and few were willing to take on six-figure debt for new machinery. Even worse, Case's corporate uncertainty made buyers nervous. Rumors of financial trouble and merger talks spread quickly. Farmers feared being left without dealer support or replacement parts. Some 4490s developed hydraulic leak issues and articulation joint wear, which, although fixable, added to the hesitation. When the Case IH merger became reality in 1985, the 4490 quickly became an orphaned model. Dealers shifted focus to new red-painted tractors, and unsold 4490s sat on lots for months. Those who did buy them often kept them for decades, praising their simplicity and strength. The 4490's engineering was rock solid. Its downfall was timing, corporate confusion, and an economic collapse beyond its control. Today, the 4490 is considered a hidden gem in tractor history, an unsung hero that proved Case still knew how to build powerful machines even while its business empire was crumbling. It failed commercially, but in hindsight, it stands tall as one of the last true all-Case workhorses. Number 6. Case IH 2096, 1985 to 1988. The Case IH 2096 was more than just a tractor. It was a symbol of transition. Born out of the 1985 merger between Case and International Harvester, it represented the uneasy marriage between two great agricultural legacies. On paper, the 2096 should have been a hit. It combined IH's powerful and efficient 5.9L diesel engine with Case's proven power-shift transmission and refined cab design. It was meant to bring the best of both worlds to loyal customers from both sides. In the field, the 2096 performed well. It delivered around 110–1,220 horsepower, had excellent hydraulic flow, and offered a comfortable operator environment with good visibility and ergonomic controls. For medium-scale operations, it was a near-perfect balance of power and efficiency. But where it succeeded technically, it struggled emotionally and commercially. The merger between Case and IH left farmers confused. Was this new tractor a Case, an IH, or something in between? Loyalists from both camps were skeptical. Case fans worried the new machines were losing their rugged identity, while IH fans felt their brand's engineering soul was being diluted. Dealers were just as confused. The new merged company had overlapping product lines and parts catalogs, leading to supply delays and service mix-ups. Some early 2096s even had minor hydraulic calibration issues that required dealer updates, further eroding confidence. Another problem was timing. The farm economy of the mid-1980s was still weak, and customers were hesitant to buy new machines from a company in transition. The 2096 quietly disappeared from the lineup by 1988 as Case IH shifted its focus to the newer Magnum series, which finally unified the brand's image and performance standards. Despite its commercial struggles, those who owned the 2096 often loved it. It was simple, strong, and efficient. In retrospect, it was a casualty of corporate confusion, a solid, dependable tractor that failed not because of engineering flaws, but because it was born into chaos. Number 7. Case IH 3594, 1984 to 1987. The Case IH 3594 was supposed to be the crown jewel of the 94 series, a sleek, high-powered machine that showed Case could still lead the industry in both strength and sophistication. Producing over 200 horsepower from its 504 cubic inch turbocharged diesel engine, it was built for serious field work and long demanding hours. The cab was luxurious for its time, quiet, climate-controlled, and laid out for maximum operator comfort. The power-shift transmission allowed smooth gear changes under load, and the tractor's hydraulic system was among the best of its era. It was designed to go head-to-head with giants like the John Deere 4850 and IH 5488. But just as the 3594 hit the market, Case's merger with International Harvester sent shockwaves through the industry. Farmers didn't know whether to trust the brand anymore. Would parts still be available? Would dealer support continue? The uncertainty froze sales. Adding to the trouble, the 3594 was expensive, significantly more than its competitors, and the farm crisis had left farmers cash poor. For many, it simply wasn't affordable. And while the tractor's engineering was advanced, some found its transmission intimidating and costly to service compared to simpler, purely mechanical setups. After the merger, Case IH shifted attention to integrating IH's technology into its new Magnum line, leaving models like the 3594 with little marketing support. Production quietly ended after just a few years, and many units sat unsold on dealer lots. Despite its lack of success, those who owned a 3594 often became loyal fans. The tractor's torque, ride comfort, and rugged design made it a reliable workhorse when properly maintained. Today, it's a cult classic among collectors, one of the last tractors to truly carry the Case DNA before the full red rebranding. The 3594 failed commercially, but in many enthusiasts' eyes, it remains one of the finest tractors Case ever built. Number 8. Case IH 4994. The Case IH 4994 was the brute of the 94 series, the largest and most powerful tractor Case had ever built before the Magnum generation. Delivering close to 300 horsepower, it was designed to dominate massive farms and heavy tillage work. Its 504 cubic inch turbocharged engine and articulated 4WD frame made it a beast in the field, capable of pulling enormous implements that would make smaller tractors beg for mercy. In operation, the 4994 was incredibly smooth and stable. Its massive tires, four-wheel drive traction, and hydraulic power gave it unstoppable momentum. For farmers managing thousands of acres, it was the ultimate productivity tool. But while it was great in theory, the 4994 ran into major problems, not mechanical, but economic. Priced higher than comparable models from Versatile and Steiger, it entered the market during one of the worst agricultural recessions in modern history. By 1984, the farm crisis had drained cash from the system. Farmers were selling land, not buying 300 horsepower tractors. Those who could afford such power often went with cheaper, simpler machines that could be repaired in a local shop. The 4994's advanced systems required specialized Case service tools, which many dealers didn't have. Fuel consumption was another sore point. With diesel prices still high, its appetite for fuel made some operators hesitant. And when the Case IH merger finalized, the 4994's place in the lineup became uncertain. Marketing shifted to the new Magnum series, leaving the 4994 without support or promotion. Only a few hundred units were ever produced, making it one of the rarest Case tractors today. Ironically, collectors now consider it one of the most desirable, a symbol of when Case pushed beyond its limits. The 4994 was an engineering marvel built in the wrong decade. It had strength, innovation, and beauty, but the market simply wasn't there. In the end, it became a legend, a tractor too powerful for the time it was born into. Number 9. Case IH 4894. The Case IH 4894 was supposed to be the ultimate expression of Case engineering, a massive, no-nonsense 4WD powerhouse that could pull anything a farmer hooked behind it. With nearly 300 horsepower roaring from its 504 cubic inch turbocharged diesel, the 4894 stood among the giants of its time. It was designed for one thing: raw, unrelenting field strength. From the outside, its articulated frame, enormous tires, and squared-off design screamed dominance. Inside, operators enjoyed one of the most comfortable cabs of the 1980s, quiet, air-conditioned, and designed for long days of hard work. But as with many great Case machines, timing was its downfall. The early 1980s farm crisis hit just as the 4894 rolled into showrooms. Land values crashed, fuel prices soared, and financing dried up. Few farmers could justify spending over six figures on a tractor, no matter how powerful it was. For those who did buy, the 4894 delivered incredible performance. Its pulling ability was unmatched, its durability unquestionable. Yet the market simply wasn't ready for a machine that big and that expensive. Adding to its troubles, the looming Case IH merger created uncertainty. Dealers didn't know what models would survive, and parts support became a concern. Some 4894s suffered from hydraulic leaks and articulation joint wear, issues that, though minor, scared away cautious buyers already nervous about the company's future. By 1987, the 4894 quietly disappeared as Case IH shifted focus to the upcoming Magnum series. It sold in low numbers, but those who owned one often swore by it, calling it one of the toughest, most underrated tractors Case ever built. Today, the 4894 is remembered not as a failure of engineering, but as a casualty of circumstance, a monster of muscle that arrived in the wrong decade, too powerful for its own time.
Number 10. Case IH MX180, 1998 to 2002. When the Case IH MX180 hit the market in the late 1990s, it was meant to lead a new generation of modern electronically controlled tractors. Part of the MX Magnum lineup, the MX180 featured a Cummins 8.3L diesel engine delivering 180 horsepower, an incredibly quiet cab, and some of the most advanced electronic controls ever fitted to a tractor of its time. The design was sleek and futuristic. The cab offered luxury car-level comfort with air suspension, digital monitoring, and push-button shifting. The engine was bulletproof, the hydraulics were powerful, and the visibility was superb. On paper, it was everything farmers had been dreaming of. But in practice, the early MX180 models suffered from something new: electronic failures. The wiring harness was prone to corrosion, software bugs caused transmission errors, and some tractors would shut down unexpectedly in the field. In an era when most farmers still trusted mechanical systems, these electronic glitches destroyed confidence fast. To make things worse, the early Case IH service network struggled to diagnose these problems. Dealers were used to mechanical breakdowns, not computer systems. Word spread quickly, and even though later MX180s were much more reliable, the early model's reputation lingered. Competitors like John Deere's 8000 series and New Holland's Genesis tractors capitalized on Case's stumble. They offered similar technology, but with better early reliability. Stealing the market, Case hoped to dominate. Despite the rough start, the MX180 eventually became a solid, dependable machine after software revisions, but by then, its chance to lead was gone. Farmers remembered the problems more than the performance. Today, the MX180 is appreciated for what it represented: Case IH's bold leap into the digital age. It was an ambitious step forward that stumbled out of the gate. It failed commercially not because it wasn't good, but because it tried to do too much too soon, before technology and technicians were ready. It was the last on this list, and a perfect example of Case's history: fearless innovation, extraordinary engineering, and an occasional fall that only made the brand stronger. Every one of these tractors tells the same story. Greatness doesn't always win. The Case 1200, the 3594, the mighty 4994. They proved that innovation comes with risk, and sometimes the world just isn't ready for genius. But here's the thing: failure doesn't mean forgotten, because every mistake Case made built the foundation for the legendary machines that came after the Magnums, the Quadtracs, the red giants that dominate fields today. These tractors may have failed in the showroom, but in the hearts of farmers and collectors, they'll run forever. If you love stories of forgotten power and engineering bravery, hit that like button, subscribe for more tractor legends, and let's keep the legacy alive. This was 10 Case tractors that were great, but failed. I'm your name, and I'll see you in the next one.